was a time when the concept of armed helicopters was considered absurd. That time was before the Vietnam War. This is the story of how men and machinery adapted to the peculiar needs of unconventional warfare to produce a most unusual and deadly weapon system, the helicopter gunship. It is the story of how the missions of these gunships expanded from one of softening a landing zone in preparation of an infantry assault to one of entirely eliminating enemy resistance from the air. And it is the story of how, in less than a decade, the theory of armed helicopters moved from rudimentary makeshift designs to one of the most advanced and potent weapon systems of the day, the Huey Cobra. In spite of the impressive record of early armed Hueys, the aircraft was never intended for the gunship role. As a result, it suffered from many deficiencies. In 1968, the capability of gunship crews would forever change with the introduction of the world's first purpose-built attack helicopter, the Bell AH-1 Huey Cobra. A two-man team operated the Cobra in a unique arrangement that placed a gunner in the nose of the aircraft, and the pilot slightly above and behind him to increase combat visibility. The gunner controlled weapon systems mounted in a movable chin turret under the nose. The pilot flew the aircraft and controlled any weapons that were mounted on a pair of stub wings. The heart of the Cobra was the rotor, engine, and drive system of the old Huey, but the rest was a revolution. Design work began in early 1965 as a company-funded Bell venture to replace the Huey. Incredibly, by August of 1967, the first Cobras were arriving in Vietnam. These powerful attack birds carried up to 52 rockets in side-mounted pods and could be armed with various configurations of miniguns, 40mm grenade launchers, and even 20mm cannons. The Cobra's most significant advantages were realized in the original mission of armed helicopters, providing escort support for air mobile operations. Heavily laden Huey gunships struggled to keep pace with the lighter, unarmed slicks. The Cobras, however, could literally fly circles around troop transports. They had a cruising speed of 160 miles per hour compared to 90 for the older Hueys. Such speed allowed Cobra crews a tremendous amount of flexibility in conducting reconnaissance and responding to enemy threats during an insertion. This, in turn, resulted in greater security for the entire force. While the Cobra's speed, maneuverability, and armament were assets to the escort mission, these same characteristics initiated a new era for armed helicopters. For the first time, significant surprise attacks on ground targets became possible. To American forces, the Cobra became known as the Snake. For the Viet Cong, it was the Whispering Death. Diving in from altitude, the Cobra could reach speeds in excess of 200 miles an hour. Such speed, combined with the fact that the fuselage was only 36 inches wide, precluded enemy forces from even seeing incoming attacks, let alone defending against them. Enemy forces quickly learned that firing on a Cobra merely exposed one's position and generally resulted in a devastating barrage of machine gun and rocket fire. The Cobra's unique tandem configuration required tremendous teamwork to operate. Crews had to perform as an integrated unit and came to depend heavily on one another in combat. Many teams stayed together for months on end.
Crews generally, and fire teams generally want to stay together for some period of time because you get used to working with each other. And it's especially important if you get into, say, an unexpected situation. You start taking fire from a certain direction. You know who's supposed to do what, who's going to go in after the guy, who's going to come around and cover, or whether you're both going to engage the target at the same time.
If necessary, the crew of a single Cobra could engage multiple targets simultaneously. Such teamwork was an important aspect of day combat missions, but it became absolutely imperative at night. Cobra teams frequently flew at night to deny the guerrillas the ability to freely operate under cover of darkness. One of the more unusual missions involved support for Firefly operations. Enemy with light until a Cobra could roll in to fire.
At night, we have a problem with target fixation.
As a result, many more night observations. When this occurred, the rapid response of Cobra fire teams was often the only thing that prevented friendly positions from being overrun. In some instances, fire teams continually rotated in every 5 to 10 minutes over a 20.
But you have to restrain yourself, and you have to find out exactly where they are. And when he starts adjusting in close, he may give
distance, and had to carefully evaluate the situation on the ground before making a selection and firing. The Cobra was a much more stable and accurate firing platform than the old Huey gunships. Both crew members also had excellent visibility, which allowed them to place fire at incredibly close range.
The minigun itself, we fired probably at relatively low altitudes. The 40 millimeter had a little bit bigger bursting radius, and you also could get tree bursts, so you had to use that a little bit further out. The rockets themselves had even a larger bursting radius, even though we did fire within 5 to 10 meters of friendly.
In driving back enemy assaults, and prevented countless Allied casualties. Throughout the Vietnam War, gunship crews fought hard to defend their comrades, and indeed all of South Vietnam, against communist aggression. Their revolutionary capabilities emerged at a critical time in a war that demanded new and innovative approaches to combat. The introduction of the Huey Cobra capped an incredible effort to meet those demands and marked the dawn of an entirely new and potent breed of aircraft, the attack helicopter. In the end, the impact of gunship missions in Vietnam clearly validated the concept of armed helicopters and reshaped the face of air and ground warfare forever.